Welcome to this episode of the Legal Paige Podcast. Now, today's episode is all about business entities, and specifically, we're only going to be talking about here LLCs and limited liability companies. With the upcoming tax season impending and looming over us, it's really not that scary, I promise. But the one thing to note is it's time to get your ducks in a row and learn more about how an LLC and taxes work together, and then how this pass-through taxation entity is going to benefit you in the long run as a solo-owned business owner. So I'm going to talk all about LLCs, what they are, how they work, how they impact your taxes and your personal tax returns every year, and ultimately why LLCs are what I always suggest business owners get and ensure that they are registered as an LLC in their state. So let's get to this episode, my friends. You're listening to the Legal Paige Podcast, where we chat about life and business with a legal twist. I'm Paige, attorney and photographer helping online businesses and creatives tackle their business dreams without breaking out in hives. No more legal mumbo jumbo. This podcast features simple, bite-sized advice that'll have you legally legit in no time. Are you ready? Let's get started. As a reminder, before we get into this episode, I am legally obligated to give my disclaimer. So I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. All legal information I talk about on this episode is intended for the masses and a large variety of different businesses. I am only your attorney when you hire me and we sign an engagement letter for me to work specifically on your legal issues. Please feel free to seek out another attorney in your hometown if you need specific legal advice or contact me for more information. Alrighty, here's the episode, friends. Hey guys, so thanks so much for tuning in today. As you know, I'm going to be talking all about limited liability companies and taxes. Let's just start out with the basics here. What is an LLC? So a limited liability company or an LLC is not a separate tax entity like a corporation. Instead, it's what the IRS calls a pass-through taxation entity. So it's similar to a partnership or a sole proprietorship. LLCs are really essentially the exact same thing as a sole proprietorship, except you're an actual business that's registered in your state, and you have this bubble of limited liability around your business that's separate from your personal assets. So with an LLC, all of the profits and losses of the LLC pass through the business to the LLC owners, called members. And those members then report this information on their personal tax returns. So the one thing to note here is LLCs are great because unlike a C corporation, LLCs do not pay federal income taxes. C corporations are what's called double tax. So the income from the corporation itself gets taxed, and then all of their shareholders, of course, get taxed on their personal tax returns. LLCs are different. LLCs, everything passes through. So whatever income, that net income you get at the end of the year, hopefully it's net income and not a net loss. That net income, we are, trying to have for-profit businesses, that all of that profit from the LLC is just going to come on what's called a Schedule C, and it will pass through. So the IRS is like, oh, okay, this is the money you're making from this LLC and this LLC and this sole proprietorship, whatever, maybe you have multiple businesses. Hopefully it's simple, right? It's just one LLC that will be filed through the Schedule C, and then it will just be filed with your personal tax return. So you only get taxed on the income that you receive as the member or owner of the business. Most of us are solo members and solo owners. So the only pass through is you're just going to make sure that you note to the IRS that you own 100% of the business, and all of that will be passed through to your personal tax return every year. But just be aware here that if you are kind of a partnership, that LLCs can be multi-member LLCs. You can also file partnerships within your state. And then LLCs are given those employer identification numbers through the IRS. You can get them at the irs.gov for free. You have to have those when you're opening business bank accounts, and to inform the federal government that you are indeed a registered business, especially if you're an LLC. And everything that you file through your LLC on that Schedule Schedule C is going to be under your EIN number. So if you have a CPA or if you're doing this through TurboTax, if you're doing this on your own, they will walk you through this. It's really simple. Like there's all kinds of programs that say, are you deriving income from another source? If yes, click this box. And then the box will take you and it'll say, what is the business entity? You'll put your LLC's name, you'll put your EIN number right there. And then, TurboTax or H&R Block or your actual CPA software will then ask for, how much income was received through this LLC that matches the employer identification number that you were issued from the IRS. And so the IRS knows that your LLC actually did receive and you are correctly reporting income from that year. So that's really how it works. And like I said, don't overcomplicate this. It's not hard. And any type of software that you use, if you're personally doing your taxes or you have a third party doing your taxes, it's simple. It's all built into the program. Now, tax rates for LLCs are all dependent on your personal tax rate. So remember, they're typically from about 10% to 37% for personal tax returns. And it just depends on your filing status, whether you're married or you're single or you're filing jointly or you're filing separately. And then, of course, your income received. So it's your income from all of your personal derivations of income that you are getting to your actual person and reporting on your income tax return every year. And then, of course, the LLC's income will be factored into that. So oftentimes when you start having multiple sources of income, of course, your tax liability is going to increase. You're probably not going to be in those lower brackets anymore, the 10, 15, 20% brackets. You're probably going to be above that, but that's okay, right? The good thing here is your LLC isn't going to get double taxed. So the LLC itself won't get taxed. You're just going to get taxed one time at the personal level. For LLCs, though, just remember that you want to take all of your deductions. And we here at the Legal Paige have podcasts all about the tax deductions that you need to ensure your business is taking. So please go check out those episodes if you want more information on that. But oftentimes you can deduct a lot of your business income before your tax rate is actually calculated. So just make sure you're taking all those deductions, whether that's, mileage, your home office, all of your expenses, whether you're writing off and depreciating certain large assets in your business. Just make sure you're checking with your CPA on this one because you don't want to miss any type of deductions that would be, of course, non-taxable. And that's important, right? We're all trying to save on taxes every year. So the big thing I also want to talk about is the benefits of becoming a limited liability company, because some people are like, Paige, it's just so clunky. There's so much to do. I really don't want to take this extra step. Can I just be a sole proprietor? I mean, you can, but I'm going to tell you really the benefit here is you gain such valuable legal protection on your personal assets without disturbing the management and income flow of your business. You don't have to have any board. Literally, an LLC is the exact same thing as a sole proprietorship. You do just have to take a couple extra steps. You need to ensure that you have a business bank account, that all of your cha-ching moments are coming in and out of that business bank account, and your personal income and expenses is different. So you do need to pay yourself something at some point. You don't have to do it regularly. Although I always suggest you do once a month or something, you transfer money. The main thing is you just want that transfer to be seen on your business bank statement. So your business bank account is always going to pay your personal bank account for, your work on the business, especially if you're a solo entrepreneur. So just make sure that you are using business bank accounts and you're using business credit card accounts as well. And this legal protection is this bubble that I talk about. And I oftentimes like to imagine you have a bubble in your right hand and a bubble in your left hand, okay? If you are popping those bubbles, then essentially the bubbles come together to create just a commingled mess of business and personal finances and assets. You don't want that. You want the bubbles to stay separate. And the bubbles need to stay intact, especially that LLC one, by not commingling funds with your personal. So just make sure that you're paying all of your personal expenses through that personal checking account and you're not touching your business checking account. I know some things happen, right? If you're like at the grocery store and you need to pay for something and all you have is your business debit card. I get that. That's fine. And of course, the IRS doesn't care about that. Your state government doesn't care about that as long as you're reconciling correctly and you're not doing it often. Like if it was an honest mistake and you can show that, then yeah, just pay with your business debit card. Don't leave your groceries on the actual like checkout. Just pay. And then when you get home, just immediately transfer that money from your personal to your business as kind of a reconciliation on your bank statements. But it is really important. I've had questions about, can I have a personal actual credit card and then I'm paying through my business? I mean, you can. Just don't overcomplicate this. Make it as simple as possible. If you really want points and it's primarily used for your business, and you're just trying to like generate a little bit of extra, mileage or something like that on your credit card, just do a business credit card, okay? If you have a personal one and you do want to say, use your Delta credit card for mileage, but you're traveling for business purposes, that's okay too. Like I said, you just don't want to showcase if you ever were to get audited that you're doing this often and you're just like haphazardly commingling funds without care. If you do use, your Delta credit card for a business flight, that's fine. Pay with your personal credit card. And then pay that personal credit card with your personal account, but you just want to transfer that certain amount from your business bank account. Say it was $350 for that flight. All you're going to do is transfer that business, expense from your business checking account. You're going to plop $350 into your personal account, and you can put a little memo on that bank transfer, Delta flight, and put a date or something. But again, don't just pay your credit card through your business account. That's a big no-no because that's all commingling funds there. You just want to show like, what is this transaction for? If it is for a personal credit card, then you can show just this transaction was for business purposes. So essentially what I'm saying here is LLCs really offer this limited liability. Now, limited liability means, of course, it has liability protection. The bubble surrounding your LLC remains intact if you're not commingling funds. So there's like this little protection around your business that for any risks or liabilities that could occur, for disgruntled clients, for any disputes, any lawsuits that could come up, if you have any negligence suits that are filed against your company, that all of the assets of the business are the only ones at risk. And this is important because if your personal assets are, you have a home, you have savings, you have retirements, you have 401ks, you have kids' college funds. Maybe your partner has a trust fund. Maybe your partner has a little bit more of, savings on their end, and you are filing jointly with your partner. All of these things come into play here on why you need an LLC, because why would you want to put at risk all of those personal, assets that you have worked so hard to create up to this point at risk from anything that would happen with your business? You just want to separate those two, which is what an LLC does. I oftentimes like to call an LLC basically the best insurance you can get for your business if you don't have insurance, because it keeps that bubble intact. And so whatever you have in your business assets, of course, that's all of the big assets that you have, computers, equipment, if you have a car that you write off through your business, so on and so forth. All of those are going to be assets to the business, right? But really, it's just the bank accounts of the business. How much money is liquid in your business? And that's what's going to be at risk. Now, if you don't have really good general liability insurance, then that is going to be essentially the bubble that someone could get at if a dispute or lawsuit were to occur and shit hit the fan. But of course, you want to add, you guys know I'm all about adding these like liability protection layers on your business. So the LLC is that first layer of protection, right? You're keeping that bubble intact with everything that I just said. I think I have said keep that bubble intact probably 10 or 15 times. I guess if you guys count how many I say in this episode and you DM me, I don't know, I'll give you something because that's hilarious. So, that layer of the LLC registering it through the state and making sure you're not commingling funds, you're keeping that bubble intact, like I said. And then the added layer here is business insurance. So for any negligence that could occur, for anything that would actually be a viable claim under your insurance policy, your insurance would kick in. And that's super helpful, right? Because your business insurance company is going to pay for your defense. It's going to pay all of your attorney's bills. It's also probably going to try and settle the dispute and pay out through your insurance company. So then you're saving thousands and thousands of dollars more. Now, I said limited liability at the beginning because here is where all of that can kind of crumble apart. Limited liability, right? It's not full liability. You're not creating a complete liability corporation. You're creating a limited liability corporation, which essentially means if you have any intentional acts or you're doing something intentionally, those are not covered and the LLC is essentially burst and now you're personally at risk. Okay. So if you intentionally hit someone and it isn't just like a negligent business situation, and you do so on business property, right? They're probably going to sue your business and they're going to sue you personally. And that's okay because the intentional act that you did is limited. The corporation is not the only one at risk if you're doing something intentional. Your personal assets are also at risk there. Want to know how to pick the best business structure for your business and personal taxes? TLP has a free guide just for you. The Legal Paige is going to walk you through how to select either a sole proprietorship, LLC, or S corporation for your specific business structure. In this guide, TLP goes over the tax implications of each structure and the benefits to each. Just go to thelegalpaige.com/choose-your-business-structure. Again, that's thelegalpaige.com/choose-your-business-structure to get your free business entity guide today. A couple things to remember that I wanted to just point out. If you choose by default to have your LLC taxed as a sole proprietorship, this means that as a business owner, you are required to report business income and expenses on your personal income tax return. You're also very, very liable for paying personal income tax on company profits. And you have to pay all of your Social Security and Medicare taxes and self-employment taxes on said profits. So that's really important. In our next episode here on the Legal Paige podcast, I'm going to talk all about S corporations and how you can save on self-employment taxes here and save quite a substantial chunk of change, like thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars oftentimes on self-employment taxes. If you're an LLC, but you file taxes as an S corporation, so you designate as an S corporation for tax purposes. I'm not going to get into that here, but I just wanted to let you know, basic LLC tax structure status is everything passes through and you pay all of your federal and state taxes, including self-employment taxes. Okay. You don't get any like freebies here. You don't get any like extra deductions. You don't get to like save on self-employment taxes unless you file as an S corp. And I'll talk about like how you do that. And it is a little bit, more in depth. So just make sure you're ready to like buckle up for that S corp situation. But LLCs are pretty simple. Like I said, you can still take your standard deductions. There's a lot of things that can come into play to reduce your tax liability and net income at the end of every year. A question I often get asked too that I wanted to make sure I talked about on this episode was, Paige, like who should be an LLC and when should I know to be an LLC? My answer is literally everyone should be an LLC at the beginning of when you create your business. Okay, all jokes aside, but really the only reason, and I'm going to list, I said only reason, but there's a couple reasons that you shouldn't be an LLC, but you have to have like a lot of these layered on, a lot of these reasons for you to be like, okay, a sole proprietorship makes sense. So first, if you've just started your business and you're barely making any income, like 5 to 10K, okay, you don't have a lot of business assets, you don't have a lot of equipment, then you would probably be okay having a sole proprietorship. However, you also want to ensure you don't have any personal assets that could be at risk. Those things I was talking about. If you have a home that has equity in it, a car, 401ks, college funds, savings accounts, etc., if you have those, even if you have a side hustle and you're like, oh, I'm not really making any income from this, who knows when something could go wrong? Who knows when a dispute is going to occur and someone's going to file suit? Like, you just don't know. So you always want to be prepared for those rainy days. And if someone were in your business actually doesn't have assets and you are a sole proprietorship, that's the perfect scenario for them to attack your personal assets. So just make sure that you, of course, have started a small business. You are not making a lot of money. It's just a side hustle, 5 to 10K, and you don't have any personal assets. That would be a good situation where I'm like, okay, yeah, sole proprietorship makes sense. Now, the only caveat to this that I've talked about at conferences and workshops with people, or people ask me one-on-ones all the time, is this kind of nomadic lifestyle of an entrepreneur sometimes can come into play where I'm like, okay, a sole proprietorship kind of makes sense, but be prepared for what that means. So if you are like a photographer who's a destination photographer, for example, and you're traveling all the time, say you're doing elopements, you're an elopement junkie, you love traveling across the US and photographing all of your couples in very, very beautiful outdoor locations. And so you just kind of live in your van. Maybe you have a van that you travel around in, okay? So you don't really have a principal place of business. You're not like domesticated anywhere in any state. These are all terms that I'm not trying to like be, biased here on sexes or anything like that. These are actual legal terms that are used for filing LLCs. So you have to have the principal place of business and you have to be domesticated in a certain state in order to file that LLC in the state. So oftentimes I'd be like, okay, yeah, you need to be an LLC for really all intensive purposes if you have any type of small business. And maybe you do have some personal assets. All right, so let's be an LLC. But if you are one of these like adventure photographers, elopement, or you're just traveling all the time, you don't live in any one place, maybe you have clients in multiple places, I don't know, maybe you're a virtual assistant and you just live a really nomadic lifestyle, you're traveling all over the world, should you even be an LLC? Because here's the issue. When you're an LLC, you have to file as what's called a foreign entity in every state that you are doing a majority of your business in. This can vary, right? There's a gray area there for legal purposes, like what is a majority? Usually, if it's anything more than 5 to 10% of your business is being transacted in that state, you do need to file as a foreign entity to ensure that you are keeping that limited liability protection in that other state or states, okay? But if you're a digital nomad, for example, and you're traveling all over the world, all over the US, you're in every state, that would be a nightmare to file as a foreign entity as an LLC. Say I'm just from Montana, for example, so I'm going to use that here. I file as an LLC in Montana, but then I start traveling everywhere. And maybe I start really shooting in California and Colorado and Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. That's 5 other states that I would have to file as a foreign entity. I'd have to pay annual dues. It is expensive. Hundreds of dollars is what you're talking about here. That is where you really need to have a check-in with yourself and be like, okay, is that really worth it to me to have that LLC? How much assets do I really have? Am I really trying to protect it? If you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of assets, my answer is probably going to be no. So it's going to be stay a sole proprietorship if you're a digital nomad and get really bomb-ass general liability insurance for your business. And you can have general liability insurance for sole proprietorships. You just want to talk to your insurance agent and make sure they understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. Yes, your premium may be a bit higher because obviously you're probably a little more risky going from state to state and doing what you're doing. It depends obviously on your risk level for insurance purposes. And they ask you all these questions when you're inquiring about getting an insurance quote. And just have good general liability insurance. Do that instead of getting 70 That's exaggerating. 7 to 10 LLCs in various states. You're going to have your main one, and then you're going to file as a foreign entity. That's just a hassle, and it's not worth it. So that is the only time I would suggest not becoming an LLC is those two scenarios, okay? You started a business, barely making any money, and you don't have any personal assets that could be at risk. Okay, stay a sole prop for a little while, right? Until you start making a lot of money. You have more risks that are coming up. You have more clients, more issues. Probably then change to an LLC. Or if you live this nomadic lifestyle a little bit and it's really not worth it for you to file in multiple states. And then the other thing here is some people ask me, like California, New York, it is so hella expensive to file for an LLC. I understand that, okay? It can be upwards of $800, $1,000, $1,200 plus dollars to file as an LLC and then file your annual dues every year. I think California has like $800 minimum of annual dues every year. That seems like a lot, right? But you have to remember that's your first level of liability protection for your business. So $800 really isn't that bad to keep your LLC bubble intact, especially if you're making upwards of 6 figures plus. It's totally worth it, okay? Maybe consider it if you're only making 30, 40, 50,000 and you just want to stay a sole prop in those states until you start making a little bit. I understand that. But, just remember, even if it's a higher ticket to pay for your LLC articles of organization and then pay for your annual dues every year, because remember, you have to file and register your LLC, but then you also have to tell your state every year that you're still active and still in business. Those are your annual dues that I keep talking about. You're just essentially paying your state to keep your LLC active. Even if those are a little bit higher price, that's okay, because that legal protection is way more important. And I would rather risk $800 of my business expenses, right? Just paying that out of my business bank account to register my business every year than having thousands of dollars at risk on my personal asset side of things, like tapping into 401ks and college funds. Not a good idea. Okay, so that's it. That's kind of the gist of what I think in terms of LLCs, why I think everyone should do them, why I think business owners should always contemplate becoming an LLC immediately when they start their business, and just some areas of thought in terms of when maybe a sole proprietorship would be more beneficial to your business. But there's probably a ton of different reasons that I could argue it's just way more beneficial to become an LLC. Now, before I leave, I did want to point out that over at the Legal Paige shop, we have LLC guides for every single state, and I walk you through step by step how to apply. Please be cautious and keep your eyes open for registering your LLCs through third parties online. If your CPA isn't doing it or your actual attorney isn't doing it, you can do it yourself. Also, attorneys and CPAs charge a lot of money to file these when you could just do it yourself. Yes, I said it. I'm an attorney. I charge a lot of money to do this. I get it, right? Because I went to law school and we can charge a certain amount of for our hourly rate. And so can CPAs. We have professional degrees. We have a ton of overhead. That's the reason that we charge that amount. I'm saying don't have an attorney do it because you can do it yourself and it's really simple. Unless you're like, okay, I have, $500 to $1,000 to just send to someone. I don't have to worry about it. No care in the world. That liability, if they mess it up, is on my CPA or my attorney. I get that. You may be that type of business owner. That's cool. I have clients that do that. And those are the people that are my ideal clients through my law firm. But I want to say the Legal Paige is always here to help you. The Legal Paige is separate from my law firm. My law firm is Griffith Law. And the Legal Paige is all about DIYing stuff as a business owner on your own because it is simple and you can do things on your own. And I want to empower you to do it. And LLC registrations are very, very, very not overly complicated. And our guides on thelegalpaige.com will literally take you through, go to this link, go here. At this link, when you're filing your articles of organization, be aware of registered agents, be aware of, filing your, mailing address and make sure it's a physical address. Are you a perpetual LLC? Are you a member managed or manager managed LLC? Our guides take you through all of that so you know what boxes to check, where to input that information online when you're filing your articles of organization, and you can get it done, I promise you, in like less than 30 minutes. So these guides are at thelegalpaige.com. If you go to the top bar and drop down, you just click on shop by product and you can shop by DIY LLC templates, and then you just click on your state. And so you can do this yourself. They're really inexpensive. I think they're less than $50. And then you just use that guide and you file all on your own. You make sure you're your own registered agent and you have your own mailing address. Unless you want to like hire a registered agent for privacy purposes, you can definitely do that in your state. But it's really great to have your email address on file through your state government, because they're going to send you all of your annual due documents. They're going to send you any registered business documents, articles of organization, or accepted documents. And that's great to keep that in-house. And you have documentation of that as the business owner instead of having some third party and having to like constantly work through them. So that's what LegalZoom does, right? They say it's very inexpensive to file through us to get your LLC, but then they charge you an arm and a leg later on because they're the registered agent. They're the ones getting all the documents from your state government. And they're the ones being like, okay, now we file an annual fee this year and we're going to charge you $750 when it would be like $30 if you did it on your own. So again, you can do this on your own. I promise you, it's not bad. We can do this together. I'm going to take you step by step through how to do this. So again, LLC guides at thelegalpaige.com. If you guys have any other questions about actually going through the steps of filing your LLC, we have a great YouTube episode on this. So you can go to our YouTube channel. It's just the Legal Paige on YouTube. So you can walk through that step-by-step guide as well. But if you want one specific to your state, but great place to get this, like I said, is those guides that we created that are specific to every state. If you need further guidance, you can always reach out to us online as well, on our website, on Instagram, or at the Legal Paige community on Facebook. I hope this episode was super helpful and that you become an LLC ASAP soon if you're not already one. Bye, my friends. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legal Paige Podcast. See, I told you being legally legit isn't so scary. Be sure to visit thelegalpaige.com for all show notes. And it would be super awesome if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review. Last but not least, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for unlimited legal and biz Q&A. Chat soon, Legal Pagers.